Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon to all our viewers. Welcome to another webinar organized by the Hatem Bazian Center for Palestine Studies. My name is Nazar Ismail. I'm the head of the center. Today, we are going to discuss a topic about American foreign policy in West Asia, bleak or promising. And Alhamdulillah, today we have our guest, Professor Hatem Bazian, from the United States, who is the founder or co-founder of Students for Justice in Palestine, founder of the American organization called American Muslims for Palestine. He is also very active in Islamophobia research and the founding editor of the Islamophobia Studies Journal. He's currently now a professor at UC Berkeley and also a founder of Zaytuna College. Welcome to the center, Professor Hatem. Thank you for your kind willingness to talk to us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. I understand the organization American Muslim for Palestine is under a lot of pressure by the Zionists over there, and currently you are being investigated by a Senate committee. Can you please explain to us why they are doing this and what's the progress of that investigation?
Well, in the United States, if you are organizing, if you're speaking, if you're advocating for Palestine and the Palestinians, and you are critical of what Israel is doing and has been doing, even before the ongoing genocide in Gaza right now, much earlier, that the Zionist Network, which is AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, all the Zionist organization, try to mobilize their influence to silence the critics. And as such, both in terms of American Muslims for Palestine and others, they utilize lawfare, which is using the courts to file all kinds of lawsuits in the hope of creating a new law that would silence the voices that advocate for Palestine. It is also using the political arena. Over 90% of, actually close to almost 98% of Congress and Senate are supported by AIPAC. They receive their financial support from the lobby. And therefore, these investigations is to create an aura of fear, so people will not actually speak or advocate for Palestine. So American Muslims of Palestine have been at the receiving end of lawfare as well as the legislative arena, meaning these investigations to both waste your resources, because every time there is a legal case and also an attack from the Congress and Senate, you have to spend time, you have to spend resources, you have to have lawyers, you have to produce papers. So that takes your financial resources and your time. And instead of organizing to have an impact on promoting Palestine, now you have to spend your time on those. And as you know, from a business perspective, you have limited amount of resources and limited amount of time. So if your resources or time are taken by all these attacks, then your effectiveness tend to be actually diminished or at least reduced. So that's the at least the effort or the campaign behind it.
Yeah, and they've been doing this for decades already.
Oh, decades, way back.
Yeah. I was a student in the US at the SUNY Buffalo, 1985. I remember there was a book published by an author called Paul Finley. I think.
Yeah,
They dared to
Congressman
speak.
Paul Finley, they dared to speak out.
And he was describing how anybody who spoke out against Israel would have their career finished, basically, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, we just had the election in a number of states for the primary, and Congressman Massey of Kentucky.
Yeah.
AIPAC spent close to $35 million, the most expensive primary elections in the history of the United States. The resources that were spent against him was coming predominantly from the Zionist sources, from Miriam Adelson, and Congressman Massey opposed the Iran war, opposed further funding for Israel, and also called for the release or co-sponsored the legislation for the release of the Epstein files. So he became the primary target, and he lost his primary, even though he's a Republican, votes 90% in favor of or with the president. But because of those three issues, the lobby targeted him as the most consequential elections for the pro-Israel organizers in the United States.
Yeah.
So to spend 35 million on
one
one
election.
congressional
primary
is unheard of. Right? So that's what you're
Yeah.
facing.
Yeah, but despite their efforts, obviously, since 1985, I've been observing what happened in the States. The awareness of American public on the Palestinian issue has increased tremendously, right? Despite their efforts. So, were you surprised by this development? I mean, despite the loss by Thomas Massey,
Yeah.
but that is, to me, it's just a very temporary setback, I think.
Well, I agree with you 100% that this is a setback. It's a losing of a battle rather than losing of the war of public opinion. And I would say the history of changes in public opinion in the United States, I would say went over maybe a 30-year period plus, beginning with the collapse of the apartheid regime in South Africa.
Okay.
That was a critical juncture because Israel and its supporters were in support of the apartheid regime in South Africa. They provided military support. They continued to coordinate. They broke the sanctions regime on South Africa and also helped the South African apartheid government in detonating their nuclear experimentation in the Indian Ocean. So, and when Nelson Mandela came out of jail, he expressed solidarity with the Palestinian. So that process from the end of apartheid, then immediately Netanyahu, who has been around for quite some time, with the neoconservatives, pushed for the Iraq war, saying that Iraq had nuclear weapons of mass destruction, which ended up having the U.S. entangled militarily in Iraq, whether it's the first Gulf War and then the second Gulf War. And all of this have cost Israel standing within the U.S. public. Move forward to, I would say, the George Floyd murder in Minnesota, that opened the discussion in a larger way about colonization, about challenges to colonial order, and Palestine was also part of that. And immediately after George Floyd, you have the attack on Al-Aqsa with the Sheikh Jarrah protests that built those alliances in there. So even though that Massey's lost his midterm primary, I do think that the shift in U.S. public opinion is directly connected to failure of U.S. policy with its you could say it's a marriage, but it's even much worse than marriage with Israel, that Israel is driving U.S. policy in areas that I would say does not benefit U.S., even if U.S. as an imperial power does not benefit U.S. imperial power, that the entanglement on the Middle East that does not actually serve the U.S. imperial interest, and I think those fractures are becoming increasingly visible.
Okay. For me, as an observer and an activist also for the Palestine cause, the US is the second front line for the battle for justice in Palestine. And the first line, of course, is Palestine itself.
Mhm.
But we know what happened to people who spoke out. We mentioned just now the congressman, but there were other worse cases like Professor Sami Al-Aryan, who was deported from the US, right?
Mhm.
He was kicked out of the US because of his activism. Um, so I can understand the challenges that is being faced people like you. How do you cope with this pressure by the Zionists who, as you mentioned, also they want to silence and the voices, and plus they probably their ambition is probably to kick you out of the US too. So how do you manage
But
to try to
we
fight?
continue to organize. We continue to educate people. We continue to outreach. We continue to do the needed work. Uh, our struggle is a long-term struggle. It's also information intensive. Uh, and I do think that we have already reached a tipping point in the United States in terms of the shift of public opinion.
Okay.
The tipping point began much earlier than the genocide.
Oh, okay.
I would say that the tipping point begins around 2021 and thereabout, that we begin to see the shift, especially among the young population, some sectors within the Democratic Party. And it consolidated this tipping point with this period of the genocide.
Okay.
And I don't think that Israel has the possibility of reconstituting its standing in the United States at this point. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is the genocide itself, that you cannot recover your public standing after you entered into the genocide zone. So Israel now is in the genocide zone, which also gets us that Israel's strategy to deal with the genocide is not to actually stop it or admit it, is to try to fan the flames of Islamophobia.
Oh, okay.
To tell the West that we are fighting a civilization war to protect Western values.
Okay.
And this is based on the Stagewell research, which the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel commissioned this research in Western world, interviewing people, having 13,000 respondents and so on. It said that the Western public considers Israel, or Israel standing in the Western public, is a state that is engaging in genocide. However, once Israel uses or utilizes Islamophobic framing, jihadism, Islamist threat, and Sharia, and so on, Western audience shift 20% of points support of Israel.
Okay.
So that explains why the fanning flames of Islamophobia at this point, whether in the UK, France, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, it is the last front for Israel to try to actually reposition itself as an ally or as a state that is quote democratic, or that it would actually be included in this realm. But my view is that it is not possible to reconstitute its standing as a state after it's already entered into the genocide zone, and there is no way for it to recover from that. The other part of this tipping point collapse is that the left began to shift around 2021 and moving forward. But now we're also seeing the political right, meaning the MAGA in the United States, the Make America Great Again, which is the brand of Trump. And that brand was focused on putting America first. And it was built around opposition to the entry into the Iraq War. The Iraq War was pushed by the neoconservatives. And the neoconservatives are those who actually come from the circle around Netanyahu and pushed for the Iraq War as a way to leverage US military power to consolidate and present Israel in a stronger position. So that mega Make America Great Again brand have literally fractured now.
Mm-hmm.
It fractured around the entry into a war against Iran, because the megas, at least Trump promised during the campaign, he was critical of the Iraq war, that this was a disaster, that it cost us close to $8 trillion, and that we will not have any more wars, and we should not leave countries to their own, what you call internal dynamics, and we should not be engaged in regime change and so on. So the fact that he entered the war on Iran, with Israel actually dragging the United States into the war. And I disagree in here with some of the left analysis where say that the US is an empire and therefore it always pursues its interests. I understand this, but in here, it was not in the best interest of the United States to actually have a confrontation with Iran, right? That Iran is a state, does not have a nuclear weapon. It does not constitute an existential threat to the United States. It does not have the leverage to actually position itself as such. Now, it does constitute a threat to Israel. That's in terms of the region. But the United States was dragged into the war on Iran. And now Iran has a much bigger leverage, because prior to the entry into the United States onto the war, Iran did not have control of the Strait of Hormuz. It had leverage over the amount of oil that it exports. Now it has leverage over 20% of the oil production that passes through there. So the United States was dragged into a war on Iran to serve Netanyahu and his millenarian right-wing government that is in partnership with the evangelicals, who were always ready to advance Israel's interests, especially among the class of supporters. So the Iran war fractured one major component of the mega, and that's where you have Marjorie Greene from what is it? From Georgia, right? That's where you lose Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, all these on the Iran war, because now it's not Make America Great Again or America First, it's Israel first, and dragging the United States. The second component of this is that the Epstein files. Now, Epstein is all indication he's a Mossad asset, Mossad agent, setting up a honey trap to leverage those relationships and use it as an instrument to extract critical decisions that benefits Israel. Right? So the fact that Trump, throughout his campaign, was blaming the Democrats of not actually taking the Epstein files seriously. He says on day one, we will be releasing the files, same as J.D. Vance, his vice president. That was the whole campaign. And as soon as they get into office, there was no files. So that resulted in literally a fragmentation of the mega base that is there. So you get the Iran war, the Make Israel Great Again or Israel First, and the Epstein files. Now, this also have led into the affordability, which is a major issue right now in the United States, that Trump said that we're going to be having the greatest economy, right? Because he's a genius, right? The art of the deal. He immediately implemented the tariffs, which is a form of taxation. Tariffs are paid by the public,
by
American public, not by
exporters,
the exporters. So that changed the economic well-being of the Americans. Then you have the Iran war that literally doubled, if not more, the price of oil in there. Yesterday, I actually put an article about the price of tomatoes and a collapsing empire. The price of a tomato box in the United States prior to this period was about $12. It shot up to $65. And there's prediction that it might go up to about 100 because
Wow.
the reason the United States withdrew from its or attempted to withdraw from the NAFTA and the free trade agreement with Mexico. Mexico provides a large supply for the United States in agricultural product. Adding to it that the immigration raids, ICE, and going after undocumented immigrants, predominantly also Latinos and from Latin America, removed a large number of employees who actually work in the agriculture sector. So you are having both the impact of the changes relative to free trade with Mexico, and then reduction of labor force for US-based agriculture. So now restaurants have to, because you cannot really run a restaurant without tomatoes. Right? So that price is accelerating in there, and also added to it the acceleration in price in terms of oil. So what he promised the American public that we're going to have the greatest economy, and was blaming Biden that he was really a failure economically, that also fragmenting people saying, I can barely make ends meet. Right? So all these issues are literally bringing Israel and US relations in terms of the war in Iran, the war in Lebanon, the genocide in Gaza, into a discussions into the domestic arena in the United States. And that's where we are facing in terms of literally the tipping point is irreversible.
Okay, so we will discuss about the possibility of Trump's being forced to reverse his decision or whatever regarding Palestine, Israel after this. But before that, you talk about Islamophobia as being a tactic by the Zionists in order to get the American public to support Israel. But at the same time, we have Muslim countries such as the UAE, maybe and some other countries in the region, Gulf especially. They are trying to be closer, trying to prove to Israel they are loyal friends to Israel, whereas Israel is using Islamophobia, right? Saying that Islam is the cause of all the problems. So can you explain these strange policies of the so-called Muslim countries?
Well, there's nothing strange in here. We actually published a book, edited volume on Islamophobia in Muslim majority states. Islamophobia
in Muslim countries.
Muslim majority.
Okay.
Muslim majority states, there is only one good Islam. The Islam that comes from the president or the prince or the king.
Okay.
Even if he's a drunken, right? Still, there's only one Islam. The good Islam is what I say. The bad Islam is anybody that opposes me.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the United Arab Emirates, which crafted its own directions, began to say that the only Islam that is acceptable for us is the quietest Islam. The Islam that does not say anything, it just only say, you're right, boss. And in essence, instead of doing tawaf around the Kaaba, you do tawaf around the president or the prince and the emir. Right? So literally that's, and in order for them to position themselves at the global stage, they think by engaging Israel and the United States and being part of the world culture, and I don't know what that means, but that's what was sold, is that you have to sign up on the Abraham Accords. You have to normalize relations with Israel. You have to create a strategic relations. And part of that is that you have to target anyone from the Muslim societies, both domestically, which understandable if that's your case, and globally. So it begins that the threat to United Arab Emirates is defined as anyone who engages Islam as a living tradition, not only confined to what the prince or the emir says. So they begin to target Muslims abroad. So the United Arab Emirates began to actually put out a list of terrorist organizations of sympathies targeting Muslim organizations in the West, in Europe, in the United States, and using the language of terrorism. Just last week on the 16th, you have the mass protest in the UK from the Unite the Right, right? Tommy Robinson, the United Arab Emirates funded that protest. And they have actually invited Tommy Robinson, which is like the primary Islamophobe in the UK, right? Same as Angel Farage, who's the head of the Reform Party. Prior to that, the United Arab Emirates funded Marie Le Pen, which is the Front National in France. They think that if they eliminate Muslim activists, Muslim organizations in the West, that they will have a free hand, and therefore they would not be critiqued about their human rights violations, about their methods and approaches, and they will enter into the globalized culture as representative of the good Islam, right? Okay. Now it's delusional because right? But that's their approach, and they have complete partnership, strategic partnership with Israel, which is a door to the United States to buy influence and to be positioned as the sophisticated Muslims who know how, right? So that's the deal that is put out there, and that's where you see the convergence of interest between Israel, United Arab Emirates, and some of the major Islamophobic figures. Like, for example, they bring Daniel Pipes. Daniel Pipes is one of the preeminent Islamophobes, Middle East Forum. He comes to United Arab Emirates to actually do training on how to confront the Islamist threat, right? So those are the lines of influence. And the Islamophobic industry in the West is partly being funded by Muslim countries, and I put Muslims between two parentheses. And also a large segment of its funding comes from pro-Israel sources. So that's the partnership that we're confronting.
There was a report on this by European organization or something like that about the UAE finding Islamophobia.
Islamophobia.
It was true then because
it's very true. They funded in Austria, right, with Farid Hafez. The operation was funded and pushed by United Arab Emirates. They've been pushing the British government and the British Parliament to declare the Muslim Brotherhood movement as a terrorist organization. And by doing so, then they would target all of the Muslim organizations by implying that they have connection to the Muslim Brotherhood movement. So that's the strategy that the United Arab Emirates is saying. And then also saying that the Muslim Brotherhood movement attempted to overthrow or have a coup in United Arab Emirates. I don't know what they were smoking at the time, but there was no evidence whatsoever other than what they said. Now, both United Arab Emirates and other Gulf countries during the Arab Spring, they opted to actually go on confronting the Arab Spring by reversing its outcome in order to secure their political seats of power. And I do think they invested or engaged in providing support for ISIS at the time as a way to create chaos, because in the moments of chaos, people will opt for stability. So if you want chaos, you could go to join ISIS. But if you want to be here, this is what the deal or the social contract that will give you. The social contract is see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. In the meantime, we'll provide you, a luxurious lifestyle. So that's the deal.
So I'm ashamed to say this, but it seems that for the cause of justice and freedom in Palestine, you can't really have much hope from Muslim countries now. They are completely useless. They have no intention to engage in a struggle to help the cause of Palestine, and therefore now it seems that the hope is more towards the American public. Partly because
let's put it this way: without the participation of Arab countries that are bordering Israel, Israel would not be able to engage in the genocide in Gaza. The Egyptian border with Gaza is supposed to be under the control of the Egyptians. They sealed that border. Similarly, in terms of Jordan, Jordan became the logistical hub for providing a way for Israeli needs to be shipped from the United Arab Emirates ports. Then they pass through Saudi Arabia, then through Jordan by through Saudi Arabia by trucks to Jordan and then crossing the bridges to supply Israel. Jordanian agriculture products were actually shipped to Israel in order to replace the loss of agriculture production in the north and the south during this past 3 period. It is painful to say, but that's the reality, that the genocide would not have been maintained, sustained without the participation and complicity of the Arab governments that were coordinating with the US and Israel and pressuring the Palestinians rather than pressuring Israel and to stop its genocide. More importantly, in particular, Azerbaijan has been the primary line of support for Israel for its oil needs. And those also shipments have sustained Israel in this current period. There is discussions that some other countries also facilitated the military equipment repairs and also making sure that this actually is done. Egypt signed a $32 to $38 billion gas deal 6 months ago, not prior to the genocide. In the middle of the genocide, they signed a deal to provide an economic almost pipeline to Israel by this deal that they signed. When Israel wants to take possibly control of the southern Gaza oil field, which is one of the major areas right off the coast of Gaza. Now, I'm not even touching where Morocco has also played a critical role, increasing its normalization and also facilitating training with the Israeli military on how to actually fight in tunnels. So you would think that the Moroccan government, at the time where the Palestinians are facing genocide, they will find a way to send Palestinians maybe water bottles through the tunnels rather than bring the Israeli IDF, the military, to train jointly on how to actually deal with the tunnels as if it is a threat to Morocco rather than actually the genocide that is unfolding. So these are the painful pieces that we're dealing with. And then when we talk about the Iran, US, Israel, the Arab countries have been at the forefront of defending Israel against their own population. Like Jordan has 8 US bases, it have a French base, and the rockets that were coming from Iran toward Israel were being shot over or Jordanian airspace and falling on the Jordanian population to save and protect Israel in that sense. And the Jordanian actually were praised by the United States and Israel for participating in the defense of Israel. And when Israeli airplanes take off, they actually go through the border between Syria and Jordan, and then also fly over parts of Iraq in the north to actually attack Iran. So all this puts us in the context that we're still dealing with the remnants or the byproduct of First World War, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and the children of Sykes-Picot that are running and governing this region.
So, in other words, as I said just now, we are trying our best here in Malaysia to encourage Muslims in Indonesia to the efforts to get Muslims to be behind the Palestinian cause. But it seems that in Arab countries now it's completely useless. So again, we hope to see that the light at the end of the tunnel will come from the enlightened American public now, who can see what's happening based on the factors.
I do think it's very important, but I do feel that the Arab and Muslim world need to also to get their act together.
Okay, all right.
We are seeing the impact of oil and natural gas on the global world.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Just the closure of the Strait of Hormuz have completely upended the global economy.
Yeah.
Right? We used to think that oil and gas will only be needed just to run the cars and maybe the air conditioning. But it turned out that you can't have fertilizers
Mhm.
without
Yeah,
the oil and the oil byproducts.
plastics, etc. Yeah.
You
Mhm.
can't have there's some extract of oil that is needed for all of the production of the microchipping
Yeah.
processes.
Okay.
Right? You have all kinds of byproducts that are needed for the medical establishment.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, right? Is a small area, but it turned out that the Arab and Muslim world is sitting at the choke points of the global economy.
Mhm.
Yet they actually are not using that leverage, right, in order to actually position themselves in a powerful position as it should have been
Mhm.
all along.
Yeah.
So Strait of Hormuz, Strait of Gibraltar, the Bab el-Mandeb, the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malaga,
Mhm.
all these are in areas where the Muslim world are present.
Mhm.
The problem is that the Muslim world have had or internalized learned helplessness. A learned helplessness in the same way that a big elephant is often managed by a small,
Yeah.
what you call
Yeah.
man or
Yeah.
woman,
Yeah.
6'6" or 6'7", even though the elephant is so huge.
Yeah.
He is trained to feel that he is paralyzed by the poking that takes place and the chain.
Mhm.
So the Muslim and Arab world already have chains in their mind that tells them that you are incapacitated, and the only way for you to be capacitated is to bring a Westerner from America or Europe to tell you that you do it, move right or move left. The reality is that the 1973 oil embargo during the 73 war was the last time that the Arab world, King Faisal, used oil, natural gas, as a strategic position for the Arab world vis-a-vis the Israel, the war against Israel. Today, there is no one in the Arab world that is actually using the strategic strength, whether it's in the trade access or their internal even consumption as a strategic tool to impact or put pressure, whether it's on Europe or the United States. And it's left for us to beg the United States or to wait for some activists in the United States to actually liberate us from ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's the
sad
reality that we are faced. But as they say, God has worked in mysterious way.
Mhm.
If you don't uphold justice, God will replace you with people who would uphold justice. And that may be the reality that we are seeing as we're witnessing people going out in the on the flotilla from all different parts of the world, including some Muslims that are coming, but the majority are coming from the Western world to try to challenge the genocide. And it's ironic because Egypt has the longest border in there. They could actually march in and walk to try to open their border. Jordans there can actually open and march in just on foot.
Yeah.
And the reality is we would not need a flotilla had the Muslims actually acted in a way to uphold not only Islamic law or Islamic, to uphold international law who has their signatories. So Egypt is responsible under the Fourth Geneva Convention. Saudi Arabia is responsible under the Fourth Geneva Convention. Jordan is responsible under the Fourth Geneva, and all are signatories to it. So we don't want you to hold the Quran and say that we are what you call doing X, Y, and Z. We don't want you to actually use fiqh. Just use what you signed internationally, obligatory law. Standing law. You are obligated when genocide is occurring within an understanding that it is genocide, is actually to act to stop it. That's the obligation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. But ironically, they invite and engage with Netanyahu rather than actually stopping Netanyahu. That's the calamity that we're facing.
Yeah, but to be fair to the Muslim public,
no, the public is different.
We are talking about
we're talking about 99% of the Muslim public, maybe 98% are committed to support Palestine, but مغلوبا عليهم. They're like literally in a state of incapacity.
Okay. All right. Now, so we're coming to the end of our discussion. So I want to go back to the U.S. foreign policy now. So looking at the current developments in the U.S. in American public who really hates Israel now. Apparently, I even saw that there was a survey done that shows that some American young people now even think that Hamas should be what should be ruling or be government in Palestine now. So which is completely opposite to the American foreign policy. So do you see that the future for American foreign policy actually to be promising or bleak?
Well, let's put it this way. In relations to Israel, this is possibly will be the last U.S. administration that will provide Israel unconditional and unquestionable support. Those days of a open checkbook
Yeah.
and open support, I think we are done with that. So that shift is going to be taking place, and this is the last president who will actually be almost more Israeli than the Israelis. The public opinion have shifted among the young population in a very, very strong way. In the Democratic Party, like almost 77% are more pro-Palestinian than pro-Israel. Even among the right, which is the Republican, the young population also have shifted away from Israel, and they're very, very critical in terms of Israel. So that's in there. Now, the second component of the U.S. Foreign policy in the region was the U.S. can outlive or overcome the disaster that is the Iran war. And that is still a big question. I do think that the United States have lost considerable prestige and also considerable standing in relations to its war. And the more that they continue down that route, I don't think they could recover from a position that they had before the war with Iran. Iran has managed to literally eliminate all of the U.S. military bases around the Gulf. And there is discussion in the United States that they're not going to rebuild these because that's an investment that has been done since 1979. The U.S. have built its military infrastructure, whether the bases in Saudi Arabia, the bases in United Arab Emirates, the Lodid base in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait. All these are no longer sustainable, and they also demonstrated their weak strategic positions vis-a-vis Iran or the region. So I don't think that the United States can recover if they continue down this path. There's a discussion that Trump today is just threatening Iran that if they don't accept his whatever conditions that he's putting, that they're going to see one big light explosion, which means threatening nuclear use of nuclear weapons. I don't think he understands the consequences of using nuclear weapons in the region. It's not only the fact that you are hitting a major city or a major town. This is impacting the whole region, and that is the hub of the energy source for much of the region. It's not something that you could, what you call, throw the bomb and then go back to play a basketball game. So that's where the consequences of this, of the U.S. entry into a war that was not needed, nor is in the best interest of the United States, will diminish U.S. standing. The other part of the United States also is collapsing NATO. That NATO is being fragmented. The United States is no longer committed to NATO, which is the collapse of the post-World War II alliances that was formed. And the Europeans are shifting away. So that fragmentation, I think, is going to continue and accelerate if Trump and his team continue to be down this path. And I think we're already seeing that the Europeans are beginning to actually have their own initiatives away from the United States. So it's the U.S. is in a weaker position strategically, foreign policy, and militarily. Lastly, I would say that the Chinese are in a much more stronger position at this point. And you could see it even in Trump's visit to China. It was like an insulting visit from all the circumstances around it.
Nothing.
And the Chinese are very deliberate, systematic, and I do think that they're coming ahead with this. The fact that Trump went in there on two fronts. One is to try to see if they could be a back channel to Iran. But the second is that he knows economically that the United States is in a weaker position vis-a-vis China, and he's trying to see if the Chinese can actually throw a lifeline to him. I don't think the Chinese are going to do this, are not going to do the economic lifeline because they have their own long-term interest, which is connected to Taiwan. And I think they're going to try to as much squeeze the United States, because if your enemy or your opposition is jumping from the top of the building, don't stop them. So it seems that Trump decided to jump from the top of the building, and then he's hoping that the Chinese are going to catch him down on the way down. I think the Chinese are saying, if this is your choice, we'll just let you go ahead.
Okay.
And the discussions about Taiwan will be what we are interested in.
All right. So, inshallah, promising days ahead. Inshallah, just pray. Inshallah, Allah will.
Inshallah, definitely we are very hopeful, and I do believe that Palestine will be free in our lifetime. I don't think that Israel or Zionism can reconstitute itself. The United States relationship with Israel, this is the last administration that will have this approach. And I do also see that the Europeans have fragmented and they're stepping away from Israel in ways that was unimaginable a few years back.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Hatem Bazian, for such an enlightening explanation of the situation, which is very encouraging for us here, for those who are actively trying to improve things and see the liberation of Palestine one day. The fact that you said just now, inshallah, within our lifetime, is really very encouraging words indeed. Thank you again, and thank you all the viewers for staying with us. Inshallah, we'll see you at the next coming webinar. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.